Story time about how my wife is trying to turn herself into Kim Kardashian with plastic surgery. She even acts and dresses like Kim Kardashian. Disclaimers is not my story time, send me on Instagram. My wife has always been a beautiful woman, but ever since 2016, she started talking about getting plastic surgery. Of course, I supported the idea. We are both business owners and we lack no money. She even looked at the plastic surgeon that Kim Kardashian uses, and we went to visit him in Beverly Hills. He told my wife that with 3 surgeries, he could make her look like Kim Kardashian. When I heard 3 surgeries, I got really scared and tried to talk her out of it, but she was obsessed and said that she would do the surgery. I had no choice but to just support her. We stayed in Los Angeles for 2 weeks in a hotel while she recovered. 4 months after her surgery, she was really happy with the results. But then she started changing her face. And this is where I started to put my foot down. She began to get all sorts of fillers in her face. She even did that thing where they lift the corners of your eyes and your eyebrows. By the end of the year, she had spent over $100 grand on surgeries. She basically got her whole body done. I will admit, her body did look amazing, but the face was the problem for me. The woman I fell in love with was not the woman that she was anymore. Her lips were ginormous. It was like kissing a pair of balloons. Part 2 of how my wife is trying to turn herself into Kim Kardashian with plastic surgery. Disclaimers is not my story time, send me on Instagram. After she started getting all the fillers to her face, it really changed and she did look different. And I didn't like it. Her lips were way too big. It got to the point where I was actually embarrassed to take her around my parents' house. Like I said in part 1, her body looked amazing, but her face just wasn't it. I told my parents about how I felt, and they told me I should just be honest with her. So I explained to my wife that I didn't like her new face. I asked her if she could get some of the filler dissolved, not all of it, and she totally flipped out. She said I was being selfish and insensitive, so I had to drop the conversation. But things started to get even worse. She started getting a lot of attention from men. Everywhere we'd go, guys would stare at her, and she would constantly get hit on, even in front of me. I'm not the type of guy to get into fights like that, but I was really close sometimes. Like I said, she also started dressing like Kim Kardashian. She would buy all the clothes from Skims, and she would basically wear lingerie out to dinner. I asked her if she could put on a jacket once, and she told me that I didn't understand her fashion. This is when she also started posting a lot to Instagram. Her Instagram was growing really quickly, and all she kept posting were thirst traps. Once again, I asked her if she could take down some of her posts, but she said no. She obviously enjoyed all the attention, and this made me really insecure. I asked her if there was something that was lacking in our relationship, but of course she said no. One day she got a DM from a very famous athlete asking her to go out. She joked about having an open relationship and how much better her life would be if she was single. This cut me deep. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how my wife is trying to turn herself into Kim Kardashian with plastic surgery. Disclaimers are not my story time, send me on Instagram. After she started getting DMs from all these athletes, my insecurity got so bad that I asked her to close her Instagram. Then one day out of nowhere, she asked me if we could have an open relationship. Of course I said no. Then she threw a tantrum and told me that all her surgery would go to waste if she wasn't able to date other men, especially all the famous people that were sliding into her DMs. I couldn't believe what she was saying. I felt like I had to agree to the open relationship, otherwise she would leave me. Now she goes on dates with all these athletes. One of them even flew her out to New York. My parents and family want me to get a divorce, but I don't want to. I still love her, and after all, she's my wife. Now she's even buying all the designer clothes that Kim Kardashian posts on her Instagram. If you looked at her Instagram, you'd think you were looking at Kim Kardashian. A few days ago, she ripped my heart out by telling me that she didn't want children. She had worked too hard and paid too much money for her body, and she didn't want to ruin it now. That's when I grabbed her phone and took it away from her. I locked myself in the bathroom and deleted her Instagram account. I even deleted all the male contacts in her phone. I told her I'd cut her off financially if she doesn't start behaving again. My family thinks I'm becoming too obsessed with her, but I don't want to let her go. Now she's not talking to me because of the whole Instagram thing. I also threw away all of her Skims clothes. Part of me thinks I should just let her do whatever she wants and still stay with her. I love her too much. What should I do?
Story time about when I smacked my friend's neighbor with a sandwich. My friend Jenna moved into a nice new condo last month, and I finally got the chance to check it out for the first time today. I ended up arriving before she got home from work, so she told me to let myself in with the spare key under the potted plant and to make myself comfortable. I made myself a sandwich and was meandering around while eating and checking out her swanky new place when the front door opened and a really large unfamiliar man with a duffel bag came in. This dude was intimidating, and I'm a 4'11" woman, so I was immediately scared. I look at his duffel bag and realize that I surprised some piece of shit burglar. I panicked and threw my sandwich at his face, then locked myself in the bedroom. I'm shaking and he pounced on the door yelling at me to get the fuck out. I start screaming at him to get the fuck out and that I'm calling the police, which is a total bluff because I didn't have my phone. He then yells back that he is calling the police on me. This gives me pause. At this point, I look around and realize the bedroom that I'm in definitely appears to be of male persuasion. I ask him through the door if he knows Jenna, and he tells me yes, that she's his next door neighbor. Well, apparently, Jenna's neighbor also keeps a spare key under a potted plant. That's when I realized that I totally messed up. I explained everything and apologized profusely and cleaned up the sandwich, pastrami on rye. After he calmed down and realized I wasn't a crazy lady, he found it pretty funny and wasn't mad. We were outside in the area between their condos when Jenna came home. We told her the story and she was cracking up. I suggested they find better places for their spare keys because apparently that's a really common spot, and next time I might not be around to throw a sandwich at a burglar. So I'm a 20-year-old single dude living with my parents still. I have a job and everything and plan to move out soon. My brother, 25, has obviously already moved out and has his own place. He's had several girlfriends for the past 6 years since he moved on. Plenty of times I thought he found the one, but didn't. Recently I found out that he's been in love with his new girlfriend, Hannah. As you couldn't already tell from her name, Hannah is of Japanese descent. I was really curious to see what she looked like as I have a personal preference for Asian women. It's nothing creepy, I just like how they look. My brother said just to meet her in person and said that I'd really like her. He came over to introduce Hannah to me and my parents. And man, Hannah was absolutely beautiful. Long hair, nice skin. My brother absolutely scored. I was friendly to her right away. My dad cooked us a feast as a way to get together and also get to know Hannah better. Hannah shared a lot about herself. She shared about her childhood and how she was bullied for being Asian and as a result felt insecure about her looks. My mother talked about how Hannah was a beautiful and kind young woman and they're glad we met her. I immediately agreed and went on a bit of a tangent. I said how it's ridiculous anyone could bully you because you're so beautiful. Asian girls are one of the most beautiful women in the world, with their skin, eyes, and how they're definitely the cutest type of women out there. I pointed out that I liked how short they were and how I love how most of them never have to worry about their weight to maintain their appearance. My brother kind of gave me a glare and Hannah got up to excuse herself and said that she needed to go to the bathroom. My mom and dad said I went completely overboard and most likely made her uncomfortable. My brother came back saying they're leaving and headed off. The next day, I get a text from my brother about how uncomfortable I made Hannah and how it seemed like I was fetishizing her. I found this ridiculous because I was just praising her and finding her beautiful. He proceeded to call me a creep and said I was objectifying her and that I owed her an apology. But I've literally been nothing but nice. I told my friends and they agreed with me that Hannah reacted too sensitively, but my parents agreed with my brother that I should have apologized. Am I the asshole for making people at the table uncomfortable?
Story time. A girl named Akira Kendrick sent me this story, and the background of it is that her dad was very abusive to her mother, and her mother got custody of Akira, and her dad was not happy about that. Anyway, so Akira was with her aunt and her cousins at her grandmother's house, all on her mother's side, and her dad stops by to say hello. And Akira's outside playing with her cousin, and her dad comes up to her and grabs her arm and says, "Do you want to go to Walmart with me?" And at the time, she's only 7, so all she hears is toy aisle, so she says, "Yes, let's go." So they get in the car, they head to Walmart, she gets some really nice pom-poms, and then he says, "Okay, let's go back to your grandmother's house." So he starts driving and he gets on the highway, and Akira knows that her grandmother's house is right around the corner from Walmart, so he does not need to get on the highway. So she says, "Dad, where are we going?" And he gets really mad and says, "Shut up, sit down, it does not matter." So Akira's in the back seat, she's really scared, and she just shuts her mouth. So after being in the car for a while, they eventually arrived at this really old, abandoned, beat up house. And when they walk in, Akira sees about 25 people and she does not know any of them. Her dad brings her to a room, puts her in a little closet, throws her some toys and her pom-poms and says, "Play." Part 2 of Akira's dad literally kidnapping her. So when they get to the house, Akira is really scared. She doesn't know any of these 25 people. Her dad brings her to a room, throws her in a closet, puts some toys in there and says, "Play." So after about an hour of being in a little closet with some toys, she finally decides to get up and go look for her dad. So she opens the door and starts looking around, and there's no one in the house. There's not even a single trace of somebody ever being there. So of course she starts freaking out and crying. She doesn't know where she is. She's so far away from her grandmother's house, and she doesn't have a phone. And so eventually, after 3 hours, she hears somebody. She looks up and her dad is standing there, and he says, "Come on, let's go, the cops are outside." So basically, Akira's aunt called the cops and they had a search warrant for him. They ended up finding her dad and they said to him, "If you don't take us to her, you will go to jail." And obviously, from what I just said, he finally took them to her at this random old abandoned house and they found her. And they ended up putting him in jail anyways, because why not? 2 years in jail and 1 year on probation. Don't steal children, people!
Am I the asshole for peeing in the cat tray? Me, 29 female, and my partner, 25 male, have been dating for 3 years and have lived together for one of those. We live in a small 1-bedroom flat that has 1 bathroom with our 2 cats. I'm diabetic and I'm on a number of medications, and one of them basically flushes sugar straight through my system and can make me pee a lot. I can go from not feeling like I need to pee to if I don't pee in the next 20 minutes, I'll pee myself. It comes on suddenly. Well, my boyfriend has IBS and he can spend 40 minutes in the bathroom easily sometimes, and this hasn't been a problem for us this far. Today, though, he had a bad IBS moment, and after 40 minutes locked in the bathroom, I felt I really needed to pee. I figured he wouldn't be long. Am I the asshole for peeing in the cat tray? I knocked on the door and let him know I needed to pee, and I asked how long he'd be. He said he'd be a few minutes, no problem. 20 minutes later, I'm kind of doing the potty dance a little and knock on the door again. He says he's going to need a few more minutes, and I tell him I'm not going to be able to hold it much longer. I asked if he could unlock the door and I'll just hop in the shower, and he says he can't get off the toilet right now. Fair enough. 15 minutes later, my bladder's hurting and he hasn't flushed yet. I figure, F it. I pop a squat over the litter tray in the corridor and have a tinkle and use a kitchen towel to wipe. I then bagged the tray and refreshed it. When he came out, I told him what I did, and he gives me an absolutely disgusted look and says that is revolting. Am I the asshole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room? Me and my husband just had our first baby, and my husband was so excited and supportive throughout the pregnancy. Well, the thing is, he's become slightly obsessed with watching videos of husbands pulling pranks on their wives in labor. I didn't mind until he started talking about doing the things he saw in the video, saying it would be funny. I stated my distaste for them and asked him not to do anything like that, and he agreed. He would still joke about it, but I brushed it off because I trusted him. Well, the day of delivery came and I had been in labor for 8 hours. I just finished another round of contractions when my husband let out the largest fart, turned to me and said, "What the hell have you been eating? It smells disgusting." I immediately recognized that as one of the pranks. Am I the asshole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room? Outraged at him not honoring what I asked him to do, I demanded that he leave the room. He started arguing, saying that it was just a joke, but I insisted, and luckily the nurse helped me get him out. I went through the last 4 hours of labor by myself since my family lives out of state and I'm not close to my mother-in-law. After delivery, I told the nurse he could come back into the room and he was fuming. He started demanding that I tell him why I kicked him out, and I calmly told him the reason, but he was pissed. He hasn't talked to me in a week and his mom is saying that I was a complete bitch for kicking him out. Normally he would defend me, but this time he completely agreed. I think I might be the asshole because I know how excited he was for the birth and to cut the cord.